Okay, so how many bids should you submit in federal government contracting if you're trying to win a federal government contract? How many solicitations should you be responding to? Again, how many bids should you submit? Today, we're going to be talking about how many per month, how many per week. We're going to be breaking down your goal. I'm going to be giving you some ranges to keep in mind. We're going to talk about small contracts. We're going to talk about large contracts. But I guess first and foremost, when diving into how many bids should you submit, how many proposals should you click send on to contracting, we're going to first contextualize that in supplies versus services, and then we will build into how many per month, how many per week, your goals, ranges, small contracts, large contracts, all that. So that is the plan for today. So it's just really important. Supply contracts, you have to respond to a lot more to win, typically, than service contracts. The reason for that is because supply contracts are typically much more competitive. Why are they more competitive? Because they are typically easier to respond to. And what I mean by that is there is less requirement from you, a contractor. I mean, let's just cut to the chase. It's a price. You're giving contracting a price to deliver something more often than not, either a one and done or for a number of deliveries, which makes it not only very attractive, but you can do a lot more of those every month, every week than you can a service contract. And why is that? Because service contracts very often require more than just a price. They're going to require other evaluation factors like a technical or a past performance. So we have to contextualize this. With that being said, for today, when we're talking about how many opportunities should you respond to, when you're answering this question for yourself as we go through this, remember, is this supplies or services that you're talking about, okay? So when you're a beginner, okay, and we will tailor this a little bit more for services because that's my preference for you all. When you're a brand new beginner and you haven't responded to anything and you're looking at figuring out how many should I be responding to, man, you just got to get that first one done, okay? You got to get it done. You got to lock yourself in a room. Okay, so that just means one period. If it's your first, get it done as quickly as possible. Try to do a good job, but just get it done. The difference between contractors who never even click send on their first, so they're at 0, and those that are at 1, it's a huge gap because so many never even get to clicking send, right? So that's the first hurdle that you absolutely must get over. And whether it's paralysis analysis, imposter syndrome, whatever, those are typically the things that are holding you back when you are new and you haven't responded to any. But if you've responded to 0, how many should you be responding to? 1. Get that first one out of the way. Get out of the way as quickly as possible. After you do that 1, I don't want you to lose momentum. Okay? So your homework first is get that first one, knock it out, okay? It's mid-August. Get this first one done before the end of the month, okay? Doctor's orders. Once you get that one knocked out, I want you to give yourself 2 weeks to do the next one and click send. So after you do your first one, you're starting out with a rate, not a range, of 2 a month. This gives you enough time so that you're not freaking out. This gives you enough time if you're teaming, sending people out to site visits. This gives you enough time if you're new to calculating pricing so that you have a little bit of breathing room. It gives you enough time if you have to submit RFIs to the contracting officer and get clarification. Okay, and that's not something that goes away. That's not a newbie thing. That's always there. But it gives you enough time to realize, oh, geez, I should have asked this question 3 days ago. Okay, so two a month or 1 every other week after you do your first. And I prefer that you sequence it like this because you are going to There's a synergy. There is a momentum that's going to build. Versus if you do one now and you do one 6 months from now, you pretty much have to start all the way over. You're not going to remember, but if you get the synergy, that helps you get a little bit better. And just, the snowball effect. I don't have to explain the power of that to you guys, of what that becomes after, 5 to 10 submissions, for example. You should be in a very different place, not only in your head after responding to 5 to 10, but literally on paper. How your proposals are looking will be different and should be different. If you're just doing price-only supply contracts, it won't be different. Your number might be a little bit different, but there's not much else, typically. Okay, so 0, then 2 a month, and then after that, well, let's talk about how long should you stay at 2 a month when we're answering this question. How many bids should you submit? I think it's fine. And again, we will add more context later on, but for this very second, I think it's fine to stay here for a couple months. It's fine. You decide when you're ready for the next ramp up. And when you're ready for the next ramp up, I will tell you what that looks like that you can use once you decide that you are ready to ramp up. I'll tell you what you should ramp up to. But, give yourself at least, say, 2 months. That's 4. If you're doing one every other week, typically. That's good. I mean, that's really good. And we're assuming, the assumptions that we're making here are service contracts, small to medium-sized proposal responses. Because the assumption is that you're new or newish. So, next, once you're like, okay, I'm ready to ramp up, the next ramp up level is 1 a week. That takes you to 4 a month, more or less. At 1 a week, there's going to be overlap, meaning you're probably going to have to start working on the next opportunity before you click submit on the current opportunity. Because we don't get to decide when contracting puts these things up, and when you find something and it's good and you don't want to miss out on it, there's going to be overlap, right? So this next level, this ramp up, is kind of the new skill set, is going to be juggling a few things. And so I'm not wanting you to rush. Like I said, you decide when you want to ramp up. I don't want you to rush to that point. Feel free to spend more than a couple months there if you need to, because a couple of months is plenty. Going to 4 a month is shifting more into like a full-time out of like a part-time. It's probably a better way to contextualize it and think about it. It doesn't mean you have to be doing it, full-time. It doesn't mean you have to leave your job or anything like that just to do 1 a week. But expect that it's going to require a lot more from you. And honestly, it's certainly not a full 40 hours even to do 1 a week. But depending on the requirement, there is going to be emails that pop up, phone calls that you don't expect, and when there's that overlap and you have multiple things going on at the same time, it can start to feel a little hectic at times. You'll start to feel things warm up, heat up a little bit. And if you don't have, time and commitment for that, it's going to suffer. So just letting you know what you're getting yourself into. So decide, once again, when you want to ramp up next to that. Next, a really good question to ask, especially if you're like just getting started. A really, really good question to ask is, well, what is your goal? What do you want out of this? Because when it comes to how many bids should you submit, you also have to ask, without question, what is it that you're trying to get out of this? Are you just trying to dip your toes in the water? There's nothing wrong with that per se. Are you trying to win one contract so that you can just see that whole contract through because you want to be thorough before you're moving on to to the next opportunity, or do you plan to still bid when you win? Because you don't want to slow down now. It depends. It depends what you handle. Both, there's cases for both. When it comes to your goal, what is your monetary goal? How much profit after taxes, after paying teaming partners or employees, and of course all the other expenses, how much profit and earnings makes this worth it? Is it worth it? It's a whole, it's probably a whole video idea that I'll probably do later this week. Not only is GovCon worth it, but is the bid opportunity worth it, or should you move on to another opportunity that will be more worth it? It's a great question for you to have at least a range of answers to when you are, again, answering the question, how many should I bid on? It's like, well, at what quality? Because now this becomes a dynamic of quantity and quality. Since we're speaking about quantity, how many bids should you respond to? Well, just like with most questions, it depends. The answer is relative. The answer is depends on where you're at, depends on where you're trying to go. Maybe you're not brand new. Maybe you've even won contracts and you're watching this video and you're asking the question, or this was interesting to you through the context of somebody who's won maybe 2, 5, 10 contracts. And you're like, well, for me, how many bids should I respond to versus somebody who hasn't even responded to one before? So the answer, it's relative and it evolves depending on who's asking the question. So something to keep in mind. I don't want to exclude anyone out of this conversation, right? I know we've got lots of folks from different walks of life on this channel, and we do have folks that win contracts. And they would tell you, brand new beginners, life doesn't end when you win your first or your next contract. It's just getting started. And when I say life, I mean the life of your business. Things are just getting started. You have to fulfill, you have to perform. You're essentially in a marriage with contracting. And both of you are required to make that a successful match for the mission, for whatever the scope of work is, okay? So all things to think about. What is your goal when answering the question, how many bids should you respond to? Of course. And I could assume, oh yeah, well, Derek, I just want to get rich and I just want to have fat stacks, I could make that assumption that that's what you're after. You're just looking for, but you are seeking financial independence. You are seeking wealth creation. Well, you better get busy, and you already know the answer to that question, right? You better get busy. Not just busy winning, but busy losing, busy learning, busy failing. Those who are the greatest winners are those who failed the most, typically. Whoever fails the most typically has the most to show for it because they learn the most. Now, I'm sure you could make a case for somebody who doesn't learn and they just keep making mistakes over and over. Well, that's pretty dumb. Anyways, what's your goal? So next, moving on. You've heard me say some of these ranges before, but we will insert them here too for anybody who hasn't heard these ranges. So 0 to 5, opportunities you respond to. 0, then your first, then your second, then your third bid opportunity. 0 to 5. Okay, I'm going to help you manage your expectation. These are going to be pretty crappy. Okay, they're going to suck. So 0 to 5, expect that. And if you can do average submissions, that's great. Congratulations, you are ahead of the curve. Because most people have no idea what they're doing. Pricing, proposal, you name it. And if you're hearing that for the first time, great. Try to strive for the best you can, but hopefully you can do average, But so many people 5 and under, they stop, they get disheartened. But if you know it's supposed to be crappy, or you know it's probably going to suck, then it's not so demoralizing, okay? That's your first range. Expect it. Next range, 5 to 10. What happens after typically around 5, 6, maybe 4 submissions? You start to get a little hungry because you've done it a few times and you're like, okay, well, I haven't won yet still. And this is assuming you haven't won, right? Assuming you haven't won, okay, I'm doing this. I feel like maybe I'm starting to get a little bit somewhere I haven't won yet, and I'm okay with that because I don't have unrealistic expectations. But I don't want to keep doing this for the next year and not winning anything. So you start to get a little bit of that hunger, a little bit of teeth in what you're doing. You start to get maybe a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more hands-on with it. What am I really doing with my proposals? What am I really doing with my pricing? Contracting, what can you tell me? Tell me, what is it? What do you want? What would have been better in my proposal, right? Feedback, debriefs, etc. You just start to be a little bit more intentional on improvement, because 0 to 5, you're just feeling good to click send on something. And you're like, yeah, I probably, but eventually that novelty wears off. And after you've done it a few times, you're like, okay, well, what am I really doing here? Where is this really going? Okay, and that's good, because you start to get a little angsty. And like I said, you get a little bit more, I guess you could say, hands-on or aggressive with it, because you're wanting an outcome. And it's not an outcome you can control, which is why this game of government contracting and business is challenging, because you can't control if you win or not. You can just show up the best that you can. You can put yourself in the best position you can. We don't know what the competition is going to look like. We don't know what contracting has going on. We don't know what their IGCE is, their independent government cost estimate is. Maybe they will just, take the requirement down and rebid it or cancel it. We don't know, and we don't have control. We can't influence it. So all we can influence is ourselves and how we show up in our best positioning that we can do. That's it. Okay, there's too many other factors. So 5 to 10, we get more intentional about what we can control and showing up regardless of those factors, okay? So manage your expectations, expect that 0 to 5, 5 to 10. Now, next, 10 to 20. Okay, and these are ranges, these are approximates, these are not promises, but they are based on what I've seen over the last 12 years being in federal contracting, either myself, watching other companies, or small businesses that I've worked with. So that's the data I'm pulling all these ranges from, okay? And it's a likelihood, and it's a strong likelihood. There's strong correlation. It's very likely. These are reasonable things to expect. 10 to 20, you're in the money. I see most new government contractors win their first or their next government contract in the federal space somewhere between 10 and 20 submissions. I think this is a good thing to manage your expectations, because you just tell yourself out of the gate, the first 10, or the first 9, you're just gonna knock them out. But what you don't know is you might actually win something, okay? And if you didn't, that's fine, because you're not expecting to win something until 10 to 20 when you're in the money. Again, it's not a guarantee or a promise, but I tell you, once you get to that range, your likelihood of winning goes way up. Why? Is it just because you've submitted so much and it's the numbers game? Okay, that's not the numbers game to me. The numbers game to me is it's quantity and quality. It's not just quantity. It's because bid 15, proposal, pricing, technical, past performance, whatever. Bid 15, for most, especially as you're going through kind of that angsty, aggressive, you're really getting some teeth into this, this game here. Bid 15 is going to be so different than bids 0, 1, 2, and 3. So it's not necessarily luck or like the numbers game that you win 10 to 20. It's because you've gotten so much better. And that's great because that's something that we can control. So aligning our expectations with things we can control is actually a pretty smart thing to do. If your plan was just to play the numbers game and get lucky, that's not something I've ever said. And if you listen to anything that I've ever said when it comes to playing the numbers game, that's not the definition I've ever given it. And I know sometimes the numbers game, it's used in many different contexts outside of federal government contracting. And yeah, it's like, well, any blind squirrel can find a nut or, whatever. That's not what I mean. So it's important to understand. If bid 15 looks the same as bid 1, 2, and 3, that's another reason why supply contracts can be so challenging and competitive, because how else can you improve? What you just keep like what's the word? You just keep scraping away at your margins, lower until eventually you win. That doesn't seem very smart. That doesn't seem very strategic. And it seems increasingly like something that's like not a good use of your time. Like you look at the epitome of like Unison Marketplace, reverse auction contracts that are just a race to the bottom. Sure, you can win some. How much money will you make? And is it something that you can hang your hat on long term? Just eating away at your margins. That's not, not necessarily a great business model, right? So instead of just getting lucky and lowering your price until you win, this is actually about improving, getting better. There's best value trade-off contracts and lowest price technically acceptable contracts. There's multiple ways to win. There's multiple ways that winning offers are selected, depending on the requirement and what the solicitation says. And the instruction to offers, evaluation factors, you've heard me say it 1,000 times, right? So 10 to 20, you're in the money. And it's not because you're getting lucky. It's because typically, more often than not, you're getting a lot better. And there's so many things that you're getting better at, including teaming partners and negotiating, right? Subs will lose the bids for you every single time. There's so many things to learn, angles, facets, where you're doing this, and this correctly, but this one thing is just undercutting everything that you're doing. So until you kind of get that foundation where you're like, okay, I've got to do this, I've got to do that, I got to do that. I know none of those things are going to like work against me. That at least I'm going to get in the competitive range, right? And that typically by the end of 20 plus, right? 20 to 30, you find yourself getting closer to being in competitive ranges. Like, oh, you were top 3 or you were second place or you lost just a little bit. Great, like that's incredible, because now your next 30 will be so different, because the 0 to 5, 5 to 10 and 10 to 20, it's your launching pad. It's your framework. It's your structure. But as your business goes on and your efforts continue, you just keep getting better. Like you get to carry that with you into your future opportunities. So your next 30 will be way different than your first 30. You're typically showing up in the competitive range after that. If you're learning, if you're not jumping to a million different industries, having to, relearn the nuances and pricing and work with a bunch of different teaming partners in a different industry that you have to relearn how to speak their language and all this stuff, right? Which is why I recommend the umbrella strategy. It's not the everything services strategy that some of you guys seem to think. It's 2, 3, maybe 4 complementary services, because it allows you to go deep, right? And they're complementary, so what you learn applies to most of them, right? Versus if you're doing construction and then you're doing staffing and then you're doing IT, it's like, my gosh, the learning curve for the industry, let alone federal government contracting, is just going to be massive. How are you ever going to learn how to compete? This 0 to 5, 5 to 10, 10 to 20, it's not even going to, it's not going to apply. But, that's a great example of one thing that could just be undercutting you, just like not negotiating down your subcontractors, your teaming partners in the proposals, because they hear government and think deep pockets. Just one of those things can just take you out. So if you're bidding, and you're not winning, you're like, Derek, I just haven't gotten lucky. It's not about getting lucky. There is something that's undercutting you that you just haven't discovered yet. And I'm trying to stand here with a flashlight and show you what some of the things could be. But hell, I don't know. Could be something else. You know what I mean? I don't know what you're doing. Another one we mentioned was just, are you even actually improving? You know what I mean? Are you, I guess while we're at it, another one could just be, are you just making up your own proposals? Maybe you're in a commercial business, or maybe you're not. Maybe you're just, new to GovCon, but you watched a video on proposal writing, or you're doing ChatGPT and you're just doing proposals the way that you think they should be done. And you're actually not using the exact, sub-factor A, staffing plan, sub-factor B, retention plan. Like, you're not following the exact ordering, sequence, nomenclature, naming conventions for your proposals. And so you think you're doing a good job, looks good to you, but you don't realize that they're grading you on a report card that you're not even paying attention to. So you're doing the hard work, you're in the trenches, you're doing great, right? But you're not even working from the same report card. Something that will just absolutely undercut you. They give you the report card. It's instruction offers evaluation factors, sections L and M, or whatever their version of it is. Is it an RFQ? Is it an RFP? Depends. It affects that too, right? So what things could be undercutting you as well? I mean, and that's not what this video is about, but I don't know. I'm feeling that some of you are watching this intuitively, and I'm feeling compelled to kind of expand on that a little bit. So if you're watching that, let me know if that was something that you think could be going on with you if you're bidding but not winning, okay? And then small to large contracts. So this really ties to our goals too, because I got some of you guys and gals where you're like, Derek, I've been following you for 2 or 3 years even, and I've won some contracts, but I'm not making enough money. So at some point in time too, you have to grow up a little bit. And what I mean by that is you have to grow up in your business. You have to ascend the chart here. You have to go after larger scopes, more comprehensive scopes, and maybe you're afraid, or maybe you think that's just too big, or that you should be able to just win a lot more of these onesies or twosies, and that they're all going to add up to be a lot of money that's going to be worth it. I'm telling you now, it's not. Because sometimes these smaller contracts, they can be just as much as a nightmare contract as the bigger ones. And I'm not even saying big, I'm just saying bigger, which isn't even bigger, but larger scopes. So if you're gonna have to deal with that, you might as well get paid more money to do it, to make it worth it. Again, I'll do another video, or I'll do a future video on, is it worth it? Things to consider. At some point, you have to stop going after these really, really small ones. At some point, you just stop playing around with simplified acquisition, and you go above 250, which might be raised into the millions with the current administration, which will be very interesting for all those doom and gloomers about federal government contracting that are still making videos dooming and glooming. I mean, are you not aware that they're actually looking at raising simplified acquisition to a crazy level? And I will definitely do a video on that when that comes out. But instead of 75K, 100K, 150K, 200K, and I even talked about this when it comes to financing, you're really going to be needing to go after opportunities that are 150, 200K plus to have some sort of lender back you, support you. Otherwise, the cost of money is going to be too large. You're not going to make any money on the contract, and they're not going to want to touch it. So life gets easier. Life gets easier, more or less, as you actually increase in value. And I'm not saying jump to 10 million where they're going to audit your accounting system and all this stuff. I'm not saying that. But you can go to 500, you can go to 750, you can go to 1 million. It will be okay. And I'm not recommending that anybody just rush out there and perform on any size contract, even if it's 50 grand, that you cannot perform and fulfill on. But if you can, let's not hold ourselves back needlessly. If we've won a few contracts, a few small ones, at some point we need to grow up a little bit, put on our big boy or big girl pants, and start treating our business like a legitimate business, truly, and to start giving it what it needs, which is, what is the lifeblood of a business? It's cash. It's revenue. We got to start running stuff through here. And if we're just going to try to build something large and great that's going to support us and allow the financial freedom that you said you wanted, or the wealth, or the legacy, or you support your family, your community, whatever, you're not going to do that by stacking up a bunch of these little onesies and twosies. You have to go after more significant opportunities, which another way to say that is you have to solve bigger problems. You have to solve bigger problems for the US federal government, larger scopes of work. Doesn't mean the approach more or less has to change significantly. You can do this, you got this. And if you're watching this and you know that's you, let me know, comment that, because I know there's a lot of you guys that are just almost needing permission. So this is me formally saying, you have permission. You have permission to go larger. Make sure you can do a good job. This is not reckless advice, but it's not reckless to say to solve larger problems when you can, but you're just getting in your head, holding yourself back. And only you know. I don't know. But you know the answer to that. And if the answer is yes, you have permission. Okay? So something new I wanted to try. I'm going to do like a one-pager, like kind of like a, not like show notes, but notes for this video. Because, I'm a visual learner. A lot of you are visual learners, and sometimes it's easy just to see stuff written out, organized, maybe have a graphic or two. So I will have, I guess I'll just call it show notes for this down below. And it'll be a one-pager or something, so it's not some grand thing, but it's free. So this is just to help you. And the idea is, well, maybe you can, get a few of these from future videos, put them on your computer desktop, print them out or whatever, because the idea is just let these be part of your compass. Let these be your guideposts. Let these be your frameworks, because we're already talking about it here in the video. We're having the conversation. Why not have some sort of, just easy to save or print, whatever. So this is the first time I'll try this. So check down below. I'll put it in the comments. I'll put it in the video description. And we'll see if you guys like that. And I'll have that ready to go by the time that this video goes live, I suppose. So if you liked today's video, definitely consider subscribing to the channel. If you are not, we've been taking a big hit on subscribers over the last year with the algorithm changes. So we need the subscribers. So definitely subscribe if you are watching this. It makes a big difference. And, if you like transparent GovCon advice anyways, if you like my blunt and bold sometimes approach to government contracting, because, it's like, I'm talking to you like a best friend. I'm not talking to you like somebody who is telling you what you want to hear so that they can make money off you, right? I'm talking to you like a best friend. I'm not giving you what you want, I'm giving you what you need, because I genuinely want to see you be successful, even though we may have never even met before. That's what excites me, and that's why I do this, and that's why I continue to do this. So why miss out on something like that by not being subscribed, right? And then if you did fall into any of those categories that I mentioned earlier, definitely leave a comment and let me know if some of those things I was speaking to actually spoke to you. So I think that's all I have to say, guys. Until next time, hope you enjoyed the video, and you got this.